Picture this. It's July 1969. The whole world is watching with bated breath. But what if the broadcast just, died? An Apollo 11 disaster wasn't just some abstract fear. It was a very real possibility that NASA had to be absolutely prepared for.
Seriously, what if Apollo 11 actually failed and left the crew stranded up there? Just imagine Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin trapped on the lunar surface while a chilling, prepared speech was just sitting there waiting on the president's desk in Washington.
This is the alternate history of Apollo 11. It's a cold, heavily calculated contingency plan, officially known as the In-Event of Moon Disaster Protocol. We aren't talking about some routine training drill here, no way. This was the genuine, deeply hidden blueprint for an absolute lunar tragedy. That speech, drafted by William Safire, was written for two men lost on the moon, waiting in vain for a final, desperate abort sequence. Think about that. In this scenario, a single catastrophic failure of the lunar module's ascent engine literally meant certain death. Now, this worst-case scenario proves something major. The possibility of utter failure wasn't just some paranoid fear. It was officially etched right into NASA's mission timeline. Diving into this alternate history really brings to light the true existential dangers of moon exploration. It reveals the final words that, thankfully, were never spoken, and the grim what-ifs that absolutely haunted the men who flew that day. But here is what almost nobody knows, and it's wild. The danger wasn't just in those massive systems everyone always focuses on. Nope, it was actually hidden in the tiny, easily overlooked details that nearly killed them before they even reached the surface. It's kind of a common myth that the Apollo program was just this invincible machine, but let's look at the technical reality for a second. The ascent engine needed to get them off the moon. It was a one-shot deal. There were zero backups and absolutely no chance of a rescue mission. For example, did you know a single broken circuit breaker almost stranded them forever? Yeah, that billion-dollar ascent engine was ultimately saved by a simple, everyday felt-tip pen, just jammed right into the panel to bridge the electrical gap. Honestly, if that makeshift fix had misfired, the mission would have been over, period. Now, you might be thinking an engine failure was the ultimate nightmare for NASA engineers, right? Well, surprisingly, an instant death on the surface wasn't even their biggest fear. You see, history isn't just about the massive victories. It's really about those razor-thin margins between historic glory and total catastrophe. The absolute darkest part of the Apollo 11 contingency plan wasn't just about the guys on the surface. It was about the man who had to watch from above. That grim reality dictated the hardest protocol of all. Michael Collins returning completely alone. He would have become the loneliest man in human history, orbiting up there in the command module, knowing that if his crewmates couldn't launch, he was the only one coming back to Earth. NASA's protocol for this exact scenario was surgically precise. If the lunar module failed to launch, the contingency protocol would immediately kick in. The very next step was absolute. The radio feed from the moon would be permanently cut. And finally, Collins would have to start his journey back, alone. While it's still widely debated in historical circles today, a lot of experts believe this feed cut was actually intended as a form of mercy. Think about it. If the transmission kept going, the astronauts' families and the whole world would have been forced to listen to their final desperate moments over an open radio channel. So the plan was to basically cut the feed to spare them from hearing that. Plus, while exactly how those final moments would have played out is still a subject of intense, super grim speculation, there was actually never a formal NASA policy outlining a specific end-of-life method. It really remains one of the darkest uncertainties of the entire space race. And just the sheer possibility of it sends a chill right down your spine. Looking at the timeline, it was July 18th, 1969. While the entire world was gearing up for an unprecedented celebration of the impending landing, William Safire, Nixon's speechwriter, was literally sitting at his typewriter drafting the end of the world for the Apollo crew. He wrote, and I quote, "Fate has ordained that the men who went to the moon to explore in peace will stay on the moon to rest in peace." Following Navy traditions, he wrote of a burial at sea, commending their souls to the deepest of the deep. It's a truly haunting contrast, isn't it? Just reading those heavy lines while remembering the real, joyous footage of the landing, it really shows you the absolute razor-thin line between a global memorial and a global celebration. But the ripple effect of a disaster would have been catastrophic. We are talking about an immediate,
jarring end to the Apollo program. And here's the crazy twist. Nobody expected the sheer scale of the political fallout.
NASA's budget wouldn't have just been frozen. It might have triggered such enormous political pressure that it could have forced deep budget cuts, or honestly, even ended the Apollo program altogether. The entire dream of spaceflight would have been buried in the lunar dust right alongside them. Plus, the Soviet Union would have likely won the narrative, turning the moon into a Soviet symbol instead of an American one. The moon wouldn't be this incredible beacon of human triumph today. It would be a graveyard, a tomb that haunted the entire 20th century. We always celebrate their courage, but we so often overlook the immense fear that walked with them. They went up there knowing that if that engine failed, they wouldn't just die, they would be completely abandoned. So, the next time you look up at the moon, remember that it was almost a graveyard. It leaves us with a pretty haunting question. What do you think would have been the bigger tragedy? The loss of two brave men, or the total end of the human dream of spaceflight?